Good evening, friends. How are you doing? My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm a New York immigration attorney, and tonight we're going to be discussing recent immigration news, and I will be answering your guys' questions live. But first of all, I would like, of course, to honor our veterans because today in the United States, we still are honoring our veterans. It's a Veterans Day, and of course, I'm thanking them on behalf of my family and my clients and myself, of course, thanking them for their service. I personally know a lot of veterans who are immigrants, and of course, America is better by efforts of these people, and I hope that you all also will honor our veterans and say thank you whenever you see them, whenever you come in contact with them, because these are the people who are sacrificing their life for all of our well-being. And now we are going to go back to our immigration news topic. I'm going to be covering today things such as new visa rules that may affect everyone, not only people who would like to come to the United States, but also people who would like to bring their family members or friends to the United States. We're going to talk a little bit about the United States Supreme Court decision with regard to the same-sex marriage couples, and I will also share an update with you about arrests at our local New York Bethpage Asylum Interview Office. So thank you very much for joining. Please like and share the stream. Don't forget to ask your questions, type up your questions, let me know, of course, as always, where you're watching from and what questions you may have for me tonight. Again, my name is Alena Shautsova. I'm a New York immigration attorney. We will be discussing recent immigration news and questions that you may have with regard to the United States immigration. Hi, guys, on TikTok, on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you very much for your gifts and kind words. Thank you for your hearts and for stars if you're watching me on Facebook. It's been about a week since our last meeting. I hope you all are doing great. If you're new here, welcome. Don't forget to follow and sign up so that we're going to meet again, of course. And let's start. So my first update will be concerning new visa rules that the Department of State will have to follow. And of course, I already published a short video on this topic. It concerns something called public charge inadmissibility ground. Public charge is when a person who would like to come to the United States is not allowed to do so, or a person who would like to get a green card in the United States would not allowed to do so because the government of the United States believes that person will be a burden. In other words, the person is going to be using public resources, our tax dollars, to better themselves. And in this particular situation, the Department of State will have to follow specific guidelines that refers to person's health, applicant's health. If, according to this new memo, a person who applies for a visa is not fit enough, may have chronic diseases such as metabolic diseases, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, mental health issues, the person is considered to be a candidate for the public charge denial of their visa application. Very important to understand that. Now, despite this finding, a person may still overcome this finding, this potential bar, if they can show that they have so much money that through their entire lifespan, not just the time they would stay in the United States, they would be able to address their health condition. Now, it's a very interesting new rule. I have to say that it's not the first time that Trump's administration is trying to introduce it. During the first Trump administration, they already tried and they failed. But this time around, it seems it's going to stick around at least for a while. And what you need to know about it is this: it's a sort of dangerous and maybe used arbitrarily by officers to deny visas to certain people. This money issue is also a big concern, especially if the person is producing an affidavit of support. But what's happening here is that affidavit of support is not the only criteria that officers are going to be using when they're determining whether or not to issue a visa to someone. So you, of course, need to know about this, and you need to discuss it with your family member or your friend if you are in the process of trying to bring them to the United States. And if you're somebody who is overseas and will be filing for a visa, you need to know that this new way the United States government is going to approach your visa application may affect it. So very important. Another very important piece of news is that the United States Supreme Court finally gave us a good immigration decision. Well, the decision was not really connected directly to the immigration, but for some people, it's a very important decision because they basically stated that they are not going to revisit the issue of same-sex marriages. You may know that there was a challenge pending before the United States Supreme Court, and of course, in this situation, we never know what's going to happen. And if the court would take the adverse position, same-sex immigrants, people who would like to immigrate based on same-sex marriages, would have been affected. Basically, the visas would not be issued to people who are in the same-sex marriage based on that marriage if the United States Supreme Court would have changed their mind. But luckily for us, they didn't, right? If we look at the history of their past recent immigration decisions, this one is actually a good decision for the immigrants. Now, of course, I want to discuss with you something very concerning, a topic that recently surfaced in a local newspaper. It's a topic of arrests at the local New York Asylum Interview Center. Why it is concerning? Well, you may know that asylum is a humanitarian relief a person is filing for when they believe they are in danger in their home country and under no circumstances they can be returned there. So basically, when you ask for asylum, you ask for safety, you ask for protection. And recently, there have been reports, thankfully not frequent, but there have been reports that I believe at least 3 individuals were arrested at that asylum center. What can I tell you? When I looked at those reports, I was trying to find common ground as to why these people were picked out of thousands of people who come to the asylum office. And from what I understand, because of course DHS did not comment on that article, at least I did not see the comment. From what I understand, the common ground was national security concern and criminal conduct by these people. That's what I understood from the reports. But nevertheless, it's a very alarming trend because, as I mentioned, asylum office is supposed to be like a sanctuary where you go to basically speak your mind, open up, open your heart, be very vulnerable. You ask for protection, right? And by the way, the government already has your information. They have your background checks. They know where you're at. And if they would like to arrest you, why would they choose the asylum office? I just don't understand that. So this is something that, again, unfortunately, you would have to keep in mind if you have asylum interview scheduled. And I'm not telling you to miss that interview. Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. Please understand that. or you have to show up to pick up your asylum interview. So perhaps you would like to discuss the situation with your lawyer and see if your situation may be somehow endangering you to become one of those targets for arrests. As I said, they're very infrequent, but nevertheless, I know how stressful immigration process is, and I absolutely need to warn you about it, so you will discuss with your lawyer if you need to potentially get ready for this type of enforcement. And now, guys, if you have immigration questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Let me see what's going on. Hi, Caesar. Thank you very much for your gift. Caesar from YouTube. Hello, I got withholding of removal granted by the judge in 2023. What are the chances I get detained at my annual check in January? Caesar, if you do not have criminal past of any sort, I think chances are very small. But you do need to know that I've heard that people with withholding of removal were detained, some of them, and what the government is trying to do is to deport those people not to the country where they're from, but to a third country. And I think here what's going to be important is, of course, discretion. That's one of the most important factors. Of course, the way you entered the United States and your criminal past. So if I were you, I would prepare for that meeting with your lawyer, just would have some papers in case they will try to detain you, that your lawyer will be able to perhaps file that stay of removal, or maybe even a federal lawsuit, right? Interestingly enough, when you do have withholding of removal, and that's how it's always been, the government shouldn't be touching you because the judge stated that your removal should be withheld, right? But as I said, this administration showed very creative ways of going around the established rules, and you need to be ready for that. One more thing that I would ask you if I were consulting you is whether or not you have any travel document, which may be very important when the government is trying to deport you even to a third country. So whoever your lawyer was who worked with you on the case, they probably know all the facts. And if you would like to, you should talk to them about this situation. If you would like to discuss it with me, please do so. Call my office, 917-885-2261. You do need to book an appointment in advance for that, but at least we're going to sit down and see what are the chances, right, maybe, and how you may potentially prepare for the enforcement, right? That's what it is, okay? Hi, Nahid. Need US visa, right? You need to apply for it and qualify for it. Hi, Torres. Hi, Alena. Thanks for being here. I'm in cancellation of removal and I'm married to American citizen. We are same sex. This will help in court. All right, so listen, first of all, good news for you, right? The one that I just shared, your marriage is valid. Don't take it for granted. There was time in the United States, just like in other countries in the world, where same-sex marriages were not regarded to be legal or lawful, and you couldn't even use it for immigration purposes. But the good thing that, as I said, situation is, at least for now, is stable. So that's a plus, big plus. Now, by itself, just because you're same sex, it may be relevant only as a discretionary factor. Remember, cancellation or removal is not asylum. There is a different set of rules that applies to it and different set of criteria that you have to meet. You have to show that you've been in the United States for 10 years. Those 10 years were not legally interrupted. You have to show that you're a person of good moral character. You have a qualifying relative, which it seems you do, and that qualifying relative will experience extreme hardship in case of your removal. Very important. right? You have to document everything very well, and this is what you have to deal with. But on top of this statutory qualifications, there is one more step: discretion. If there is something in your past that the government doesn't like, judge doesn't like, they may still deny your case. All right, so you have to be ready for that. I guess you don't have legal entries. That's why you're filing for it. That would be my guess, because that's a typical way why a person would file for cancellation of removal. Thank you guys very much on TikTok. Thank you, Gabby, for your gift. One more thing you need to know, and of course, I guess it's not probably relative to you because you are in this proceedings, but we do have a settlement going on in some northern states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and a couple of others, where motion to reopen, joint motion to reopen, is still available if you have I-130 approved for the purposes of adjustment or I-601A waiver. But it's not for everybody. It's only for residents of those states. If you need more information about it, please reach out, and we're going to have a consultation to see how we can fix your situation. Hi, Pan. Thank you very much for your gift. Greetings from Indonesia. Yay. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing the stream. Let's see what questions you have, people from TikTok. Let's see. I hope everybody is doing great. I'm going to go to the very end, and let's see, guys. Don't be shy. Hi, Alex. Would you be interested in hearing about automating your document review? Guys, unfortunately in immigration, unfortunately, we cannot automate the document review. Sometimes you're looking for a little checkbox on the document, like if we're dealing with 212E waiver situation or allegations against the person in the notice to appear. So as much as I would love to trust AI to review the immigrant documents, right now we cannot do that, unfortunately. Hi, Bruno. My N400 denied in 2013 for misrepresentation, but not fraud. Stay as a green card holder? Bruno, I do not know what happened there and what kind of misrepresentation and when it occurred. Sometimes when there is a problem of this sort, once you pass the statutory period of 5 years or 3 years, however you were qualifying for a green card, you'll be all right. But if misrepresentation occurred during the green card process, and that's why you received the green card, because it helped you to get a green card, don't refile your citizenship yet. I would say work with a lawyer, all right? Because right now, guys, if the government uncovers that you received the green card the wrong way, they will place you in removal proceedings. Hi, Ravinda. I'm Mary, U.S. citizen, and I have asylum green card. Can I apply for citizenship in 3 years? Yes, you can. Interestingly enough, however you received your green card, if you are in a viable marriage with a U.S. citizen, you still can use the 3-year rule opposed to 5-year rule, okay? Thank you very much, guys, for the roses and little gifts on TikTok. That's very sweet of you. How long does I-130 case take in total? Hey, B. Well, that really depends on whether or not the beneficiary is in the United States or not, if the beneficiary is in the removal proceedings or not, and what country they're from and who is filing for whom in terms of family connection. Okay. All right. What do you say to the families of those victims of illegal criminals? I would say the same words to the victims of any criminals, because remember, not only illegal criminals are committing crimes, US citizens of any color are committing crimes as well. And absolutely, any victims deserve justice, whether they suffered by an immigrant or by a US citizen. It's undeniable. But to say that just immigrants are committing crimes, that's just not true. Immigrants in total are contributing much more into the development and well-being of the US citizens and the United States than they are committing crimes. And I think that the numbers speak for themselves. I don't know what happened in the United States that all of a sudden with targeting a group of people, our neighbors, for their status, rather than trying to resolve the issue. I do not know why the approach was chose like that. This is a wrong approach. It never brings happiness to any society. By the way, for those of you, and I see some people joining who are proponents of an aggressive enforcement, how about the fact that over 170 US citizens were unlawfully detained by ICE? Numbers that you cannot argue with. And those people suffered tremendously. And why don't you ask them how they feel about this enforcement? They're US citizens. They informed the ICE agents that they are US citizens, yet they were severely mistreated and their rights were violated. Can I apply for residence right after I-730 approval? Yes, you can, but I would not recommend doing so. Why? Because under the regulations, what's happening here is that you have to demonstrate that you physically resided in the United States for 1 year prior to your green card being granted. So, knowing that, I would wait for at least 6 months. Okay? New York City, yay, New York City. Do I have to print my affidavit of support to my immigrant interview? Absolutely. And if the immigrant interview is overseas, you also have to bring originals of your documents. Very important. Work permit holder C14, danger of deportation. Listen, anybody can be a target. The question is, do you have a relief of any sort? Any opportunity to ask for discretion? Good moral character, right? That's what's important. All right. Hi, Fardi. I was interviewed on October 21st. The officer said everything was fine until now, no approval. What kind of interview was that? I wouldn't be alarmed. It hasn't been that long. Sometimes the officer has to check whether they're legally correct. Sometimes they have to get approval from their supervisor and run some background checks. Okay. So I don't think you need to worry about it. Not enough time passed to be alarmed. Hi, last done. I have a pending I-45 and it's been 16 months now and still pending. What do you advise to do? What is the ground for I-45? Is it asylum? Then I don't advise you to do anything. All I can tell you guys that people who received asylum status and filed for the green cards, you're going to be scheduled for interviews. So those cases were unfreezed and gradually are being scheduled for interviews. Hi, Mohammed. Good morning from Pakistan. Hi, Alia. Let's see. Hello, USCIS sent my wife's affirmative asylum case to court without hearing with USCIS. Is that normal? She applied for asylum while her student visa was valid, meaning that she was going to school. Not quite normal, no. Not sure what really happened here. I would say that typically they would give you the interview, so no, that's not a regular situation, okay? Definitely not a regular situation. How about CDL license? I saw one post you made today. Can people with no green card get it to renew it? Currently, yes. Federal court stopped the regulations prohibiting immigrants doing so. So you can use this opportunity to try to renew it. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Hi, Caesar. I I also have approved I-130 pending, on approved I-130 pending or pending I-130. And when they granted me my withholding, the ISDA was the one who recommended my withholding of removal. Does that help? Well, I think it doesn't hurt, right? So it means that they decided that you're not a dangerous person, and that you at least deserve some sort of a discretion, so it doesn't hurt. The question is, was it I-130 by a lawful permanent resident, or what was going on? Why would you not ask for a 601A waiver out? Not sure. Perhaps you can explore it now, all right? But of course, if they recommended it, it means that also, however you look at it, if you were asking for asylum, but they recommended only withholding, then you kind of lost, right? If you were not hoping for anything and they gave you withholding, then you won. So I need to know more facts, but overall, it's not a bad situation. Hi, I applied my EAD renewal via case and got receipt number. And from Facia still, I can travel with my passport middle of my VAWA case pending. All right, so I guess what's happening here is that you have a VAWA case pending and you file for the renewal of your work permit. I do not know when you filed for it, if you have the extension of it or not, do not know, right? Because the rules recently changed. But typically, you should be safe and you are able to use your country's unexpired foreign passport to travel around. But again, if you are in the middle of the enforcement, like we see in some airports, I cannot guarantee you that the government would not try to just grab you. I have seen cases where a person with approved I-360 was issued notice to appear. All right, it can happen as well. Hi, Polak, my friend just waiting for his USCIS interview after submitted asylum-based I-45 adjustment of status. How long it can take? Remember that there was a stay on those cases, and now they're being scheduled for the interview. So I don't know where your friend is in that line, what state they're in, since the interviews are scheduled in local office, field office. I would think it also depends on the line amount of cases in that office. Hopefully within a year they will be scheduled. All right. Let's see, guys, from TikTok. I'd love to just show you sometimes how the inconsistent, would you be open to? All right, guys, if you have some marketing questions, reach out to my team, okay? We have special person in the office who deals with everything. Hi, truck sniper, I have asylum, I-45 for 20 months. What else? Again, you'll have to wait for that interview, right? How to upgrade my I-130 status to a US citizen to speed up my case. I-130 status to a citizen. Was the I-130 filed by a lawful permanent resident and now the person became a citizen? Well, then you need to see where the I-130 is pending. National Benefit Center, local office. Contact them with a copy of the person's naturalization certificate, and hopefully it's going to move the things around. You also can ask congressmen for help. All right, these people are very effective and they know how to find the right person for you. Okay. All right, let's see. Hi, Tanvir. I'm in removal proceedings and I've been married with a US citizen I-130 4 years ago, still pending. That can happen. One of the factors why some I-130s are taking forever is whether or not the beneficiary is in removal proceedings. Previously, before the Trump administration took over, we could have asked a prosecutor on your case to help to speed up the interview. But now, for whatever reason, they all repeat the same. Well, I'm from a different agency and I cannot help you. All right. So again, if I were you, I would contact your congressman and try to speed up that I-130 interview. Make sure you're prepared for it though, okay? Very important. Hi Lola, if on a green card interview, I forgot I was denied from entry to a different country, for example, Israel, is it bad? No. If you were denied entry to a different country, not the United States, it's usually irrelevant. However, the reason for the denial may be relevant if you forgot about that too, like arrests, for example. But if you never had that, that's usually not important. Hi, Tumbleweeds. Do you remember the guy whose girlfriend drove him? Oh, yes. Wonder what happened to him. Poor guy. Unfortunately, I do not know what happened to him. But I can imagine that person probably is stuck there. Yes. There was a story when somebody called, and stated that that happened to them. I mean, it's just crazy. I don't know. I'll be honest. All right. Let's see. What do you do if you have a pending I-45 for over 16 months? Right now, I wouldn't do anything. Pending is not denied. I have so many inquiries. People are so impatient. They're like, I would like my case to be resolved today. Why do I have to wait? You have to wait, number one, for the things to be done correctly. Number two, so that nobody, including prosecutor or the judge or USCIS, are not going to try to retaliate against you for bothering them too much. In 17 years, I've just seen it too often. And I would caution you against trying to speed things up right now. Please understand that. It's very important. We're all people involved in the process. Good judges, bad judges, they're all under pressure. You're asking them to do something that they cannot do or they see as not necessary to do, and that may have consequences. Nobody's going to openly admit to that, but I've just seen it. And I'm sure some lawyers seen it as well. Unless you have life or death situation, do not, just because you are impatient, bother these people right now. The consequences of the denial, you're going to deal with them forever, and it's going to be costly. Appeals are very costly. Motions to reopen are very costly. Let them do their job within that time. As you may understand, you're not the only person in the process. So I would not speed anything up right now unless you have an extremely powerful, good excuse to do so. Okay? Remember this. 16 months, I mean, yeah, it's kind of long, but as I said, I wouldn't try to do anything right now. Hi, Eric. I disclosed I worked unauthorized while filing a marriage-based green card. What are my changes? What are my changes? You were supposed to disclose that you worked without authorization. The good thing that you will be forgiven for it automatically. Okay? There is no danger in disclosing the fact that you worked without authorization when you're married to a U.S. citizen. Hi, my husband, who's a U.S. citizen, applied for me 2 years ago and still nothing. That's long. Not sure what's going on. Maybe it's not the first time you guys got married, any of you. Maybe the government is trying to see if you are subject to 204C bar. Maybe you are in removal proceedings, or maybe you're from Yemen. I have to tell you, I speak about it every single time. If you are from Yemen, for whatever reason, it takes twice as long as for everybody else. All right? Let's see if you guys have more questions. On TikTok. Hi, Noor, I'm in removal proceedings and I got married and I just applied for I-130 2 months ago. Oh, that's going to take a long time. You better make sure that your lawyer can time your case in court the right way. Okay? Hi, don't you? I had a pending I-45 and it's been sitting for over 16 months. Right. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Don't do anything, all right? Don't do anything. Not long enough for you to start worrying. All right. Hi, the chosen one. Thank you for your advice. I was able to come back in the States after I lost my US passport overseas. Good job. Hi, Leo. I also have no removal orders or anything. Would marriage, let's see, Leo, what questions you have. Would marriage be a faster option or advanced parole? For what? Advanced parole. Aha, here's the beginning of it. Okay, let's see. Do you advise advanced parole for DACA if I had a lawful entry when I was 3 years old? I have no criminal record and I'm in a nursing school. Me and my girlfriend are engaged as well. Leo, if you can prove that you did have legal entry, you were inspected and admitted, you're fine. You don't need to use advanced parole, okay? But you have to be able to prove that you were inspected and admitted or paroled at that age, right? Let's see, guys, on TikTok. My wife has 2 refusals from US Embassy now. She has Italian passport. Can she come now in the United States? I doubt so. If she did have 2 refusals for whatever reason, she would have to file for ESTA, visa waiver, to enter the United States. And typically, it will be denied, right, in her situation. But I don't know why she had those refusals. How long time ago? What were the reasons? What the consular officers were asking her about? Speak with a lawyer and see what's going on. You stated wife. Are you also in the United States? Are you trying to bring her on an immigrant visa? So wouldn't she be committing fraud and misrepresentation, trying to enter on ESTA if she would like to stay here? If she's not trying to stay here and she simply would like to visit you and come back, that's a different story. But I would say that you need to discuss this with a lawyer, okay? Let's see. Let's see, guys, on TikTok. If you have more questions. Yes. For those of you who are married to US citizens, or maybe your US citizen child is sponsoring you, now the child is 21 years old. If you worked in the United States without authorization, if you overstayed your visa status in the United States, these are not bars to get a green card based on your US citizen relative petition. So you absolutely must disclose those facts. There is no danger in it whatsoever, okay? All right, guys, let's see if you have more questions. Can I apply for biological daughter after separation? Can you apply for biological daughter after separation? Sure. If you're, let's say you were married to her mom, right? During the marriage, the child was born, there is no question that you are the father. If you were not married and you were just living together, now you guys are separated, I mean, you have to prove that the kid is your kid. It's becoming a little bit more difficult, but possible. So you should be able to. I'm not sure, what the issue here is. Also, what status you have and things like that. You should be able to, generally speaking, especially if it's your biological kid. Okay. Hi, NL. My husband did biometrics yesterday. Portal says step 4 interview completed. Oh no, they updated the thing wrong. Don't worry about it, okay? It's just, I wouldn't rely on those updates at all, to be honest. Talk about pending I-45 based on A or 5 category. What would you like to talk about it? Let me ask about your question. Ask your question, okay? Ask your question. All right, let's see, guys, if you have more questions here. Good evening from Algeria. Yay! What's time? What time is right now in Algeria? You guys, like, you're supposed to be sleeping, I think. If you're in Algeria, it's like early morning, right? Like 3 or 4 in the morning. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. The first thing in the morning that you saw was my face. Thank you. My travel document is pending since 20 months. What should I do? If you have a good reason to expedite it, because you did file it a long time ago, you should absolutely file the expedite request. All right? All right. Ask about green card issues. Yes, guys. Ask about... Now, so the TikTok has AI. It helps, I guess, everybody involved in the life to organize their thoughts, and it gives people suggestions. Ask about green card issues. Hi, Aria. Why green card applications based on asylum is pending for more than a year? Why green card application based on asylum is pending for more than a year? Well, first of all, those applications routinely were taking longer than regular applications, because at the time when the government admits you as a permanent resident, they have to make sure there was no asylum fraud involved and everything was done the proper way. So they would always take a little bit longer to process those applications. They would pay attention to how you fill out your forms and run a very thorough background check. Okay, but this year it's different, because this year the government stated that they will do extra vetting for applicants for green cards after they received asylum. That's why it's taking so long. All right. Hi, the chosen one. System still has me as an LPR, a lawful permanent resident. I'm confused. Which system still has you as a lawful permanent resident? With Social Security office, you have to update the record. I applied for I-45 through asylum. Take more than 2 years. Yes, it takes a long time. Don't forget also, they're probably going to be called for the interview, right? Remember that, it's very important. Hi, Patchforge. Через неделю интервью по браку. I-130 одобрено, браку 4 года. Политика dismissed, жду теперь шансы. Интервью по браку, но I-130 одобрено. All right, so the person has an interview scheduled based on marriage, but I-130 was already approved, so I guess it's I-45 interview, right? Because I-130 was already approved, and the asylum case was dismissed. You know, what would happen? You need to show, вы должны показать, что вы живете в браке, который до сих пор хороший, то есть вы вместе живете. Вы должны показать, что вы въехали в США легально, и нету барьеров для получения грин-карты, таких как, например, наврали где-то в иммиграционных формах, либо было какое-то уголовное преступление. Ну и тогда у вас должны быть хорошие шансы. Помните, что сейчас по новому руководству правительство будет проверять, не набрали ли вы свои заявки на убежище. So the person is asking whether the chances they have to receive a green card after previously they filed for asylum, but the asylum case was dismissed. So you need to remember that government recently issued a memo stating that they're going to be, while adjudicating green cards based on marriage, reviewing your past asylum filings as well, to make sure that there was no fraud in those asylum filings. So as long as everything was good, you know, and there were no issues with the asylum case, person should have good chances of getting the green card. All right? All right. Let's see, guys, if you have more questions. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I don't read Spanish. I think this is in Spanish. I'm sorry, Joe. I won't be able to answer that. All right. I'm a derivative with a US citizen passport, but customs told me that their system still shows me as an LPRY. Oh, very often it happens. Well, because you didn't go through a naturalization process. That's why. So they may be behind. And what would you do to fix that? Well, first of all, there is a way, this travel Department of Homeland Security, and there is this office. I don't know where you are, right? But there is one in Manhattan. It's like when you have entry issues, they can correct your records. Sometimes people are accused of having a criminal record when they don't, or criminal record already was resolved, but they still are subject to secondary inspection. So you contact that office, it's in World Trade Center, and you ask them to resolve the issue, and you present your documents and the issue gets fixed. It does take some time though, but maybe something like that, that what you have to do, okay, to resolve this. So they will finally update their records. All right. All right, let's see. All right. Let's see if you guys have more questions. What can I do now? What can you do after what? I applied for I-751 September 2023 and still pending right now. Divorced with my spouse months ago. Oh, hi Farah. So it happens. It's not anything unusual. You filed your I-751 petition to remove conditions when you were still married. You filed it jointly. And now you have to amend the petition because your situation changed. So first, you need to determine what waiver grounds of joint filings would apply to you. There are three. And then you have to amend your petition, preferably ahead of time, updating documents and information with USCIS. So when you're called for the interview, they are not surprised. Sometimes, if you're called for the interview and you didn't have a chance to update your I-751, you can do it at the interview. All right? That's what needs to be done. And again, it can be a vow sort of basis. It can be basis that you were married, but now the marriage resulted in divorce or extreme hardship. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining tonight. Thank you for sharing, liking the stream, and of course, following. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, don't forget to connect again. I hope you're all going to have a lovely evening, and I hope to see you guys soon.